Hey everyone, I'm going to be talking to you about athleticism specifically for baseball and specifically, I guess, for amateur baseballers. Obviously, if you're from Birmingham Baseball Club, you know who I am now, probably. If you're new to the club or you're watching from another club, I'm Gareth Thomas, GT. I play centre field for Birmingham Metalheads and have done since 2020. Hoping to give you all a little bit of insight into training and becoming an athlete and what that means. Um, Maybe dispel a few myths along the way, maybe push you in the right direction. So, really going to be talking through a few categories through this. One, sort of talking about the idea that you don't need to be athletic to play baseball. After that, what it means to be an athlete. After that, and becoming an athlete, what like the actual steps of that are. So I'm sure almost all of us at some point will have met someone saying, either ironically or seriously, that you don't need to be an athlete to play baseball, and we'll probably refer to guys like Bartolo Colon there. And look, some pretty unathletic guys have been successes in baseball. Um, just like some players have had long careers in the pros while not being able to throw a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, or they don't hit many home runs, or they're fielders, but they make a lot of errors. Um, but you'd have to be an idiot to think that these players wouldn't be better if they could do those things too. Um, so at some point, no matter how good you are going to bump up against your physical limits. You can have the prettiest, most technically perfect swing. If you only weigh 50 kilograms, you've got no muscle mass, you probably aren't going to muscle that one out of the park. So your athleticism, your level of athleticism, will determine both your floor and your ceiling, and we'll talk about what that means um, shortly, and why I call athleticism the cheat code is that it's one of the best things you can do in terms of return on investment. In amateur sports, we're only going to get so much time every week to train the sport itself, usually just a couple of hours. And the reality is that you are going to find yourself competing against people who have more experience than you, whether that's just 2 years, 5 years, or as we see at Birmingham, sometimes guys with 20 or 30 years more experience than you. And sorry to say that the reality is, with the time we have per week, you will probably never catch up to these players technically. But what you can do is you can catch up to and surpass them physically, and that's why I call it the cheat code. So here's what I mean about the floor and ceiling. You see on the left there, we've got a line that goes from elite at the top down to not good, as a rough estimation of what we'll call talent, I guess. Your floor is sort of your natural lowest level. Um, Roughly how bad you could be at baseball, and your ceiling is the opposite of that. It's how good you could potentially be. You might never hit that lowest level, and you might and probably won't ever hit your true ceiling. But it's about the range that's possible. And we've got four players here that are, sort of simplified examples. We've got player A, who's both a newcomer to the sport and they're also not very athletic. Their floor is obviously right down there. They don't know the sport. They don't know the technicalities. They don't know what good form, what good movement looks like. They can attend training and get better. But as I said, there's only a few hours per week for most of us to do that in. And they're going to be super limited in that because obviously they don't have the skill base yet. And they also can't make up for that with their athleticism because they don't have any. So their range is quite low down. Next up, we've got player B. They've got a similar range, but they're experienced. They know the sport well. They've got the technique, so their floor is high. They might not leg out a triple. They might not be able to chase down what looks like a hopeless fly ball, but they'll hit well. They field soundly. They won't really let you down technically. But because they're not an athlete, their ceiling isn't where it could be. They'll hit their limit of capability and availability simply because their body can't get any more out of their technique. that they have. Now, player C is interesting because this isn't somebody that's, this is somebody that is technically raw, but is an athlete too. Their floor isn't going to be as high as that experienced guy because they don't yet have that acquired knowledge, but they are capable enough athletically to make their own look. They're physically capable of some amazing things. They can round the bases faster. Um, they might not hit as often, but when they do hit, they'll hit it hard. And because their body is capable, their ceiling is higher than those experienced guys that don't have the athleticism. If they can stick at the technical part, they could quickly become a very good player. Coaches will look at this sort of player as somebody that has plenty to learn, but they can also contribute to the team while they do because their athleticism will carry them to a degree. And player D, I guess, is like the ideal player, right? The world is their oyster. Even on a bad day, they're going to contribute because they've got the combination of technical and physical ability. In short, I guess they have the body and they know what to do with it. It's an experienced player with high athleticism. These are people who are going to be written on the team sheet with permanent marker. They're never coming out of the team because they're always available. They can play at high level even into the end of the second game of the doubleheader, and they have the technical skill to go with it. And this is a little bit more complex, but baseball basically rewards accumulation of experience more than other sports. So athleticism and all that comes with it is super important in baseball because it gives you that ability to hang around long enough to learn. Obviously, in every sport, you'll gain experience the older you get and the more you play, but also there's the wear and tear that the sport puts on your body. And where those points cross over, we see the value of that accumulated knowledge. I've got some sort of 4 examples down the bottom there of different sports. I think like the starkest example is there in the middle though. So if you compare baseball to a sport like American football, in baseball, the more situations you play through, the more pitches you see, the more batters you see, the better you can adjust. You know better that you struggle to hit curveballs or you can't hit low and away as well as you can hit high and inside. And you're only going to learn that through experience. So obviously with baseball, if you look after your body, you can play baseball for a long time. As you get older, you're able to amass more accumulated knowledge at a relatively low cost when it comes to wear and tear and injury. You compare that to something like American football. Again, obviously, the more you play, the more you know what's coming, you can adjust, you can make better plays out of that. But it's so damaging to your body that the value of that accumulated knowledge is lessened because you don't get to express that knowledge for as long because you simply won't be able to physically keep up with the sport for as long as you can in baseball. So we've talked about why I think it's important to be an athlete in amateur baseball and why you should think it's important as well. But what does it actually mean to be an athlete? I think the easiest way I can start by pointing this out is to look at sort of 4 common archetypes I see in amateur sport that aren't athletes. Right on the left there, you've got your couch potato, people that don't train at all outside of club training, and they probably don't come to training every week or all that often, or they don't put in huge amounts of effort while you're there. These people don't have much muscle, they're probably relatively high body fat, they've got no cardio capacity, they're not strong, they're not fast. These are guys that sit around, turn up on game day, maybe it's training. I guess weekend warriors, some people call them. Then amongst the people that do train physically, I commonly see these other 3. So first off, we have the marathon runner. That's someone, it's a cardio bunny. It's just all cardio for them, running, cycling, whatever it is, that's all they do. Some benefits to that, obviously they have relatively low body fat and they can go for days, but they usually lack muscle mass. They aren't strong, and also they lack that top end speed in short bursts that are common, particularly in sports like baseball. You've got the bodybuilder then. They'll spend a lot of time doing isolation lifts, so Those are exercises that just work one muscle group at a time, or primarily work one muscle group at a time. They're jacked physically, they look pretty good, they're strong, but they don't necessarily know what to do with it. And also, when it comes to the field, they get gassed pretty early because they've got low cardio capacity. And also, they don't train for speed, so they're not particularly fast. And finally, you've got the power lifter. These guys are strong. Um, and let me clarify. This is no disrespect to actual power lifters. I'm more talking about people who think they're power lifters. So these guys are strong, but it's also partly an excuse for being fat and slow. They've got lots of muscle. They take up all the weights in the gym because they're capable of doing it, but they are fat. They don't train cardio. These are guys who will gas out before they reach first base, even if they've hit what's a clear triple. So, contrary to that, what does it mean to be an athlete? Being an athlete picks from the best of all of those, except the couch potato, obviously, and also adds in a little bit more. They're strong and strong enough. They're fast enough. They've got enough cardio capacity so that they can keep operating at a high level, even in the ninth inning. They're resilient to injury, and probably most important to this, they come to club training all the time so that they're not just building up those physical skills, they're being able to apply them to the technical side too. And this is the difference between an athlete and a non-athlete. Athletes are well-rounded. They don't train to be strong for strength's sake. They don't train to be able to run an ultramarathon in one go. They aren't training just to look good on a stage. They're training to be good at their sport. Some of those things might come along as side effects, but primarily they're training to be good at their sport, in this case, baseball. So let's talk about how you become that athlete. It's not enough just to see what makes up of it. Let's talk about how you get there. And I know a lot of people over the years across different sports have asked me for programs, have asked me what my program is. Um, the reality is that all of you are going to be at different stages. Some of you might be closer, some of you might be further apart, some of you might be 10 years into a gym journey, but you've not necessarily trained as an athlete. You're one of those other archetypes. Some of you might have never stepped into a gym in your life. Some people have access to different gyms and equipment. We've got different times that we can commit to. I personally don't live in the gym. I'm probably looking at 4 hours a week, maybe. But I know some people have more time than that. Some people have less time than that. So what might work for you, what might work for me or be possible for me might not work or be possible for you. And additionally, while we're talking about training to be athletes, you might have some different side goals as well. You might want to be an athlete that is particularly muscular. You might want to be an athlete that is particularly strong at one lift as well. Ultimately, probably all of us, when you've been to the gym for some years, will have all these little side quests that you want to go on as well. So I'm going to stay away from giving you a program. Instead, I'll just talk you sort of through the high level essentials to try and point you in the right direction. Strength. Obviously, we spoke about strength. Don't shy away from getting strong. All the best athletes will be strong. They might not, be competing with power lifters, but they're strong enough. So we get strong, but we don't go too far. Probably the quickest or most efficient or maybe most fun to you way to do this is through stuff like big compound lifts. So we're talking like barbell back squat, flat bench press, and your variation of deadlifts. As I said, don't go too far. It can get tempting to chase numbers, especially if you see your friends doing it, if you see people on social media putting up huge lifts. And to a certain point, we want to push ourselves. We want to lift heavy, but beyond that point, the reward you'll get to compared to the risk that you'll undermine the rest of your training just isn't worth it. Let's take barbell back squat. As a baseball player, look, if you want to go out and squat 2.5 times, 3 times your body weight, go for it. But somewhere halfway towards that journey, you are just going to find that you're having to focus on that one exercise so much that it's taken away from the rest of the stuff. So yeah, build muscle through big lifts, get strong. That has loads of benefits, especially when it comes to injury as well. But don't push it too far. Speed. Let's get fast. Speed kills on the field in pretty much every sport. In fact, I would say it's so important that if you could only do one exercise outside of club training, if you've only got time for that or capability for that, make it sprints. Speed will open doors for you in baseball. You'll catch balls and field balls that others can't get to. You'll be able to leg out singles and doubles that others won't be able to. You'll put stress on defense. If you're a fast player, then fielders and pitchers will know they need to consider you at all times because you are capable of doing damage. Um, I always find something weird about people's perception with sprints is that you can't get faster. Like you have some base level of speed that you're born with, and that can't improve. But that's absolutely not the case. If you're regularly sprinting and you're lifting and you have the cardio capacity for this, you will get faster. Um, and another thing, people sometimes I think shy away from sprints because they're almost embarrassed. They think like, "Oh, I'm not fast enough to sprint." But that's the whole point. We're doing this to improve. We're doing this to get better. Um, sprints aren't measured. The sprints aren't a measure of speed. You don't have to be able to go and run a 10-second 100 meters to do sprints. It's a measure of effort. If you are running over a short distance as fast as you can, you are sprinting. Make sure you're being honest with yourself. You should be pushing yourself here. It will be hard. But like I said, if you're putting in max effort, you are sprinting. You don't have to do a ton of this either as well. I mean, me personally, I do approximately 300 meters a week and I split that over 2 sessions. And again, it doesn't sound a lot, but it's enough, possibly more than enough. Um, I look to do it's approximately 5 or 6 25-meter sprints at a time. Um, Very rarely in baseball are you going to sprint much further than that. I like to cut that up. I like to cut it up that way because um, I'm not gassing out. I'm able to maintain full speed for that time. Um, and also, when it comes to sprints, don't be afraid to rest in between reps. Yeah, especially if we're looking to improve our top end speed. If you're looking to use it as part of conditioning to improve your cardio a little bit, okay, take shorter rest periods between reps. But honestly, don't be afraid to take rest in between sprints so that every rep you give, you can go 100%. Cardio, build up your lungs, however you choose to do it, running, cycling, swimming, whatever, build up your capacity. Obviously, yeah, people will point out that there isn't a ton of running in baseball, and that's maybe because people aren't very good when it comes to cardio capacity. But when you combine the running that is there, the hard throwing, the hitting, it all adds up, especially when you're getting deep into the second game of double headers. Be the person who's still going to be able to go 100% in the ninth inning of the second game. Whatever the sport as well, cardio is one of the key indicators of success. Generally, if you have high cardio capacity, you will probably be good at the sport. Again, similar to everything else, it's about balance, right? Don't destroy the rest of your sessions because you're trying to recover from running 1 hour on the treadmill at the gym. You got to find that balance where you want to be pushed, you feel like you're out of breath, you've got your heart rate going, but yeah, remember we've still got strength work to do, we've still got speed work to do, and we've still got plyometrics. Plyometrics they're not complicated. It might sound complicated to you if you're a newbie, but ultimately they're exercises that involve a rapid lengthening and contraction of the muscles. Obviously, muscles only go two ways; they get longer or they get shorter. Plyometrics are those exercises where that lengthening and contraction happens quickly. So this is stuff like jumps, hops, bounds, throws, and this is stuff that's going to help you translate that strength and power at speed. And they're probably like the one big category of exercises that I see missing from everybody's program. And probably the key differentiator between an athlete's program and those other archetypes we looked at earlier. Um, Most sports, baseball no exception to that, involve going from standing still or moving quite slowly to going 100% rapidly. And plyometric will help you build that ability. It will make you faster, it will make you powerful, and it will make you more resilient. And I've put underneath them all because it really underpins the whole thing. Play your sport. Um, you look on social media, you look at baseball coaches, professional baseball coaches, even, you're just going to see a lot of trash and nonsense about what they call sport specific exercises. And people tend to ask for these quite a lot too. They get sucked into this idea that if I do this movement that like looks similar to something I do in my sport, it will help me with that sport. If I swing a big heavy barbell like a baseball bat, it will help me swing faster. Just ignore them. The gym is not the place to get better at baseball. The diamond is. Use your time at the gym and the equipment at the gym and the facilities at the gym or wherever you're training to get strong, to get fast, to get explosive, to get capable. Then take advantage of that on the field. Don't waste time with all these little micro movements and ultra specific exercises that have you moving in one plane, trying to replicate something on the field. The best way, I always say, you want to get better at a thing, do the thing. Um, you know, if you're lifting big, you're doing your plyo, you've got that explosiveness that you'll be able to throw hard, you'll be able to hit hard. You don't need to get sucked into sort of nonsense movements with medicine balls or cables trying to replicate something that you can just do at the field. Don't waste your time at the gym doing stuff that you're going to be doing at club training anyway. Okay, we've had some questions through now, so I'll try and get round to answering them too. Um, First one, what's the advice for the older guys out there? It's a good question. Uh, some people out there probably consider me an older guy at the club, so it is coming somewhat from experience. I'll be 36 next season. Um, yes, you aren't going to be naturally as capable as younger guys. You might take a little bit longer to get the engine going, and sad reality is that compared to someone else of your level, um, at a similar level to you who is younger, you probably are more likely to get injured. Um, Sad but true. I always simplify this though. Wherever we're starting from, whatever our limitations, we can do our best. Sounds simple, but we all have a best to do. That ability to push yourself, challenge yourself in the gym, to drag yourself to the gym or to club training when you really don't want to go. That's available to people of any age. These are the sort of attributes of good players that I always push people to take because I say, stuff like effort is free, discipline is free. You have to pay for any of this. It's not locked away. There's not some secret to it. You can access that at any given time. So, yeah, it's going to be different. It's going to be harder in some ways, but we can do our best, whatever age we're at. Next question. How do you know when to take a rest? This is an interesting one, actually, and hard for some sports people because stuff like the grind is glamorized and we might need to outwork not just our opponents, but also our teammates. We want to get that starting spot right. So it can be tempting for some people not to take their foot off the gas. Conversely, some people just don't work hard enough. That they will look for opportunities to stop working. So there's no one size fits all answer here. So what matters even outside of rest, but with absolutely everything, not just in sports and exercise, but I guess with life, is being able to self-evaluate, being able to look at yourself through a critical lens, ask questions like, is what I'm doing working? Could something else work better? Am I good at this, or am I struggling with this? And of course, like, do I need to rest? Um, Build rest into your program. That, like I say, that ties nicely into the previous answer, previous question about working out as an older guy. Yeah, build rest into your program, or it will smash through that door when you don't want it to, or when you don't expect it to. You'll be forced to rest. Um, Whatever your program is, structure your program so that it can be scaled up or down. I guess for baseball, particularly to align with the season. An example of that would be, like, for me, during the off season that we're now coming out of. I changed my program, so I'm lifting a little bit heavier. I'm doing more sets at heavier weights. I'm pushing myself a little bit harder, knowing that I don't have training on a Thursday evening, and I don't have a couple of games or a tournament at the weekend. I can take advantage of that dead time in the season to uh, give a little bit more physically. As we get closer to the season, the pre-season, like we are now, I'll scale that back. I drop the weight a little bit. We're not talking about taking all the weight off the bar, but reducing it a little bit. I'll do fewer sets, and I'll program in an extra rest day, because I need to leave something in the tank for what's, like, really important to me, and that's training and playing baseball. And final question we've got is, I guess not so much a question, but something that stops me starting is being scared of injury. Um, okay, I mean, that's understandable, especially if you're not an expert, you're not experienced, you don't know a lot. Unfortunately, when you choose to embark on your sporting career, you invite that concept of injury into your life. Um, at some point, all of us will get injured or at least hurt. It'll stop us doing something that we love to do. Um, the reality is that many people are like you. They worry about getting injured by physical training. But the alternative is worse. Not training increases your risk of injury. Um, Strength training conditions our body to be capable of moving huge weights, and when performed properly, can increase our flexibility, our range of motion. Sprints condition us to be able to move at 100% speed. Cardio conditions us to perform at higher intensity for longer. Um, if you shy away from physical training because you're scared of injury, you're just going to be stacking up problems that probably will come out later. Example of that: if you hit the off season and you stop sprinting, you go like 8 months without sprinting, your risk of blowing out the hammy on that first run down the first baseline is going to be much higher than somebody who's doing a controlled, regulated amount of sprinting every week. Um, so we do need to accept the risk of injury, and what we do is we plan to minimize the chance of that happening, rather than like wrap ourselves up in cotton wool and just hope for the best on game day. It's not a sustainable plan for avoiding injury. Okay, hopefully you all found this useful. If you've got questions for me, you can always reach out to me on this stuff. And good luck trying to become a better athlete.